we have a lot in common. It turns out anyway. Also an actor, filmmaker for 20 years. I don't know if you heard that about me.
I don't think that I did. Tell me a little bit about your backstory. I'd love to know.
Oh, I got a BA in theater arts, a master's in acting. I trained with Larry Moss for 10 years.
Wow.
I love New York. I was based in New York, but I producing films all around the country. I produced 5 feature films.
Wow.
Some a lot more successful than others, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
And I booked some TV. I love doing theater. So it was, I also stepped away from it. Yeah, after 2020 and that debacle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough business.
it is
It's a very tough business.
very tough business. It's tough when you're getting your validation from all external, powers, forces. It's like
Yeah.
it's tough on the self-esteem if you get
Yeah.
confused about it.
That's right. Well, and it attracts a lot of neurotic
Oh, yeah.
people who are there for. I mean, we're all there for the right and wrong reasons. I think. I certainly was attracted to acting on one level because I wanted to fulfill my creative expression, but then on another level, there was something neurotic that was driving me, a desire to be seen, a desire to be special, and once I started going to therapy, I traced that all back to my childhood, obviously, and that was sort of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, you and me both. We have that in
Yeah.
common as well. I think obviously it comes from our childhood, but the desire to express yourself in ways maybe that you stop being able to as a child, or at least the subconscious desire.
Yeah.
Because of course that's where all that childhood programming lies dormant until it starts, making its way out into your life. And you're like, wait a minute, why am I like that? Why am I stuck like this? And then it's time to go to work. And that's where therapy comes in.
Exactly.
But yeah, listen, I'm not comparing my career to your career. You have had a far more recognizable acting career than I did. So let me just make that distinction right away. You've been on some very big shows, and then what you've done since then has been just as incredible. So it's an honor to have you, David. Thank you for beaming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So it's crazy because we both were contributing to the hotbed of what is very much more known now as predictive programming, right? Like we see it over and over, and I'm just wondering from your vantage point, is Hollywood a magnet for manipulation, or is it just the messenger, would you say?
That's a great question. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, there's so many weird things. The most recent one was the movie Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage and the connection to the Charlie Kirk murder. And then, of course, there's that famous video about Back to the Future predicting the Twin Towers. I mean, when you watch that, you just think, how is that possible? My intuition, having been in Hollywood, is most of the people there, they're good people. They're just trying to do their thing and make their way and create what it is they want to create. So I have a feeling that it's just tapping into the collective unconscious. So I don't know that there's an intentional conspiracy for predictive programming, but I think things are just in the field and creative people pick up on that. Like, where did this idea for the story come from? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, right? Nobody knows where our ideas come from. But my feeling is there's a, kind of universal, intelligent force that we can all tap into. And certainly creative people tap into that all the time, and they pick up ideas and stories. And so are they sensing that something's coming something's going to happen in the future, or all it says everything happened already, and they're just picking up on some future timeline or other timeline, and it comes into the story. That's my explanation for that kind of thing. That said, you hear all these stories about the Hollywood being tied in with the CIA, and obviously the media is tied in with the CIA. So I think there's some of that going on. There's definitely messages being propagated. We see it now, with the children's programming, with all the transgender things. They're pushing that, which is very controversial. And I grew up on. I think I became an actor because I grew up on TV, and I wanted to be somebody on TV. And so much of my ideas, I think, about the world and particularly about relationships came from TV shows and movies that I saw. And it wasn't until I got married that I realized all of that was complete horseshit. Well, it was actually when I started doing Hallmark movies at the end of my career. And I couldn't, it was female fantasy. It's almost female porn in a way. And I just thought, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of putting these fantasies out into the world. And I know that women enjoy them, and I know that they know that they're fantasies, but there was something in me that just felt like, I don't think this is good to be putting out there. It's creating a lot of false expectations. And so, it's a complicated place. It's light and dark, good and bad. But overall, my personal experience was very good. I met a lot of amazing people, normal people that were just there to do their work, and then the opportunity to work with top professionals in the industry, not just actors. I work with so many incredible actors, but camera operators and sound technicians. I mean, Hollywood is the best of the best. And so being on those sound stages, Warner Brothers and Paramount, it's just, it was magical. And the level of efficiency and professionalism and artistry was just amazing to be a part of.
Yeah. And for the most part, everywhere you go, people who work in that industry in general, they're just thrilled to be working in that. And, they're thrilled to be doing what they love. People don't understand that, like, 98% of people calling themselves actors walking around the United States are not supporting themselves in any way by acting, it's their dream, and that goes for people who end up on crews and end up holding a boom mic for, an Academy Award winning actor and doing their makeup. This is a dream come true, and so you have this environment where it is very magical. You have so much positive energy and willingness to work hard and get the job done. So absolutely, I agree with you there. Like a lot of things, I think aspects of Hollywood have been hijacked by some of the more nefarious elements that have the resources to manipulate our society and our as a global society as well. So, but that you can extrapolate that statement across the board,
of course,
with everything and anything, but it's just, I feel like the industry has suffered since 2020 and since that happened. I was kind of liberated from that industry, being stuck in New York in 2020, 2021, and them they're being totally shut down. And then what they said when you came back was, you had to get the shot 3 times just to audition. And I was like, the audition's not in person. Why do we have to? I just kind of happily retired. But I loved it while I was in it. It's a craft, it's an art, and it's people give themselves wholly to it. So, say what you want. We'll leave Hollywood for most of that for a different podcast. We
sure.
have to get into the underground tunnels of Hollywood, but since Hollywood, and correct me if I'm getting this timeline right, but were you an actor also practicing psychotherapy, or did you did you take up psychotherapy when you left the acting profession?
I started, well, I mean, I started in therapy in my mid late 20s, just
Mm-hmm.
as a person who was curious to learn more about myself. I started to see that I had these unconscious patterns, and I was just fascinated. So I tried a lot of different modalities until I found this one in my early 30s called core energetics, and it just lit me up. It was like this
Wow.
was what I was looking for. Talk therapy was great. I did some Gestalt, which I found very powerful. Chair work was it's psychodynamic. I thought that was incredible, but core took that to a whole other level, and I was really looking to feel my feelings. Like I knew there was stuff locked inside intuitively that I couldn't get to. I couldn't get it out of me, and core it has a philosophy
Yeah.
and the tools to allow you to do that. So instantly I was in my feelings and crying and raging, and all of this stuff was coming out of me, and it was terrifying but beautiful. So I was, it wasn't until I was 35 I kind of hit the peak of my career. I was on a TV show. I'd just done a couple of big movies, and I bought a house in Studio City, and was redoing it. I'm at a nice car. I had all the things. And the story goes that I had this very beautiful, famous girlfriend, and she dumped me,
Mm.
and I was devastated. I'd never been dumped before, and it something happened in that moment where it whatever illusions that I was still holding on to, they all came crumbling down, and I had a crisis of faith, a crisis in what I was doing, a crisis in what I thought I knew, and a friend recommended that I go to this core energetics retreat. Now, I'd done some individual work, but he said, this is a whole other level, and this woman is incredible, and just go. And I trusted him, so I did go, and that changed everything for me. I knew immediately that I was going to pursue the work. It just felt so dynamic and interesting, and everything that I was looking for in acting, I felt like was there in this work. And so I didn't quit acting right away, but that was the beginning of the end. And a couple of years later, I joined her training program. It was 5 4-day weekends a year. So I was like, well, I can do that, and still keep working. And
Yeah.
that's what I did for the next really 10 years until I finally let it go and decided to commit to doing the work that I'm doing now full time.
The synchronicities that I discover with my guests always astound me. But you are the first person who also happens to be an actor who has mentioned the impact core therapy has had on their life. It's so same exact, similar scenario. A couple years in talk therapy. Great. I've now discovered exactly why I'm so fucking, excuse my French, why I'm so incredibly malfunctional.
Right.
And now I know exactly what parts of my childhood were a dumpster fire, and what parts of my family were objectively dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So after being catatonic for about 48 hours, and a couple years in talk therapy, I was like, no, so this doesn't help me. And how do I get better? How do I rewrite the programming? And I just happened to be in New York City, and I walked by and I saw a postcard for a core therapist. Do you remember what core stands for?
No, I don't.
I always have trouble with it too. It's like emotional. I know E is the emotional. One of the E's is emotional. Core
I
energetic.
didn't know it was an acronym.
It is an acronym, but for everyone wondering, core therapy has an understanding that trauma gets stuck in the body, and it's one of the biggest emotions get stuck in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they be trauma, fear, the lighter emotions are easily metabolized. We go through them like the body goes through sugar, but the darker ones are much denser, and they're hard. The body kind of stores them like fat, for lack of a better way to put it, and they get stuck in our body. And so core therapy understands that, and they work with the person to try to help locate where it may be stuck, and also move it out, through
Right.
action. So like I'm sure David has also spent some time with a pair of batting gloves on and a tennis racket beating a pillow,
That's right.
or something of that nature, which is amazing if you've never tried it. And a good core therapist will help you get to the bottom of some of the things that are buried. And it's those things that end up making us sick down the road, if you want my honest opinion. Those things that get stuck in the body, they end up finding a way out in other ways. So that's crazy. I mean, that's amazing that we also have that in common. Very cool.
Yeah, it's a powerful modality. It's not for everybody. It's very intense. It's very cathartic. It is challenging, and I don't think it's right for everybody. I've had to learn that over the years. Of course, when you discover something, you want to share it with everybody, and tell them, you got to go and try this. But it's deep, and not everybody wants to go to that deep place. Some people just want strategies to help them get through life, which is fine. And I've also had to learn that as well. Like, not everybody's like me and wants to go into it all the way, but a lot of people do. And even if I've had people do 5-6 sessions with me and just become totally transformed because they just allowed themselves to access parts of themselves that they didn't know that they were there, or they didn't understand the intensity of the feelings and the emotions. And of course, blocked emotions, if you think of it as energy, it also shapes our consciousness, how we look at reality, how we look at ourselves. So it's when we liberate these emotions from the body, we're also elevating our consciousness. We're opening up to a different way of seeing the world. And there's a real connection. And anybody who's done the work knows this. It changes you psychologically, physically, and the two things are connected, mind, body, psychotherapy, obviously. But that connection is very strong. And so you just start to see your patterns in such a different way, and they become so obvious to you. And you realize how much of your life you've spent avoiding feeling. And because of that, how much you've spent avoiding life because you don't want to put yourself in situations that these feelings that you don't want to feel might come up.
Right.
And so that's kind of my sales pitch to people. It's like, it's expansive, and it will benefit your life in that you'll become much more free, willing to take risks, and willing to go after what you want in a stronger way, because you're less afraid to feel the feelings that inevitably come up when you are fully engaged with life.
Right. And it's like people don't understand that the emotional spectrum is this, especially for us humans, it's this incredibly expansive thing. And if you end up cut off from, or numbing, or it's avoiding, or like in my case, I had a physiological response to being vulnerable, which just crazy. Like, I'm an actor, and the moment I feel vulnerable, I don't have to have a conscious thought. It's just whisked away. Like, so imagine how much trouble I was in working with Larry Moss, working on, different roles where the dude is completely heartbroken and drunk. And I'm like, and I'm not even touching the role. I'm like playing at it, and he's like, Faust, he was like, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to hit you. I can see that that's already been done. And of course that went right over my head. I was like, okay, good. So what do we do? How are we going to go after this? He's like, we have to find out why you built Fort Knox over your heart. And I was like, yeah, maybe we should do that. Yeah. But yeah. And so with the core therapist, I was able to start to give myself permission and reignite that ability to be vulnerable in front of people, and she turned me on to meditation and introduced me to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and radically changed every part of my existence, and you don't know what you're missing, because it's been gone for so long, but there's this whole other side of life and feeling and profundity that you don't realize you're cut off from unless you're willing to go down these dark holes and kind of shine a light there. So I love what you're saying, man. It resonates with me so much.
Yeah, great. Well, a lot of people are on the path. It's when I started out, not a lot of people were doing this kind of work. This is back in, 2000, really, when I started, and then really got into it in 2005. And so it's incredible for me to see what's happened. You can go on Instagram and see all kinds of young people talking about this kind of
Hmm.
thing, and all these therapists sharing their wisdom and their philosophy. So it's gone mainstream, which, I guess is good and bad, but it's always the case. There's a lot of insincere people maybe out there, trying to make a buck, which is it's just part of it. But there's a lot of great people, and just the fact that social media has given us access to this, and it's become part of the language, and most people understand the basic concept of trauma, and that they have it, and that it's impacting their life, and that they know that they need to resolve it in some way. And that's a big change in the last
Mm.
10, 15, 20 years, because therapy before that was really seen as either something that the elites did in New York, or rich people going to
Hmm.
see their therapist 3 times a week, psychotherapy, or something fringe and new age.
Yeah.
And but now it's everybody now, and there's obviously still a huge backlash on the right, particularly a lot of the men on the right don't believe in therapy, and I understand that from their
Yeah, you
perspective.
can tell by the way the condition the world is in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bad therapists out there, and
Yeah.
there's and the issue for me too is, and I had this in my training, I do think that therapy is feminized. It's mostly women who are therapists, and mostly women who are teaching it. So I understand men's reluctance to go to therapy, because I think a lot of men don't feel seen and understood, or there's a kind of a feminine perspective, a feminine way of thinking about the world and dealing with emotions, which in and of itself isn't bad or wrong.
Right.
It's just that men don't always resonate with it, and they need something different.
Yeah. Um, that's funny. I never really thought about that, the feminization but I guess therapy in and of itself has a feminine essence to it because it's very consoling, and I mean it's supposed to be, I guess, and it can be. But yeah, I think a lot of men are just hung up on their shit. Like a lot of bad upbringing
Mm-hmm.
combined with societal patriarchal nonsense, and they don't want to let it hang out in front of a woman. I think that's the bigger hang up for most guys, is they don't want to stick their heads there because they're scared of what they might find, and they're very comfortable, at least however miserable they are, staying in their routine. That's
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But um uh I do believe wholeheartedly in the importance of men's work, and men finding other men to, if that's what it's going to take. And for a lot of men that is exactly what it's going to take. And I know that you do a lot of work with men's groups, right? Like you want to
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about some of the work you've been doing on that front?
Well, the first thing I ever did was a men's group. And because I came out of my training feeling that I wasn't fully seen and understood, and it was a big conflict in the school because I would bring it up, and
Mm.
there was a lot of pushback. But in the end, people did understand what I was saying. And so I really felt like, because I was a jockey guy. I was not a new age kind of person. I mean, I certainly have would say a strong feminine side, but I also have a very powerful masculine side. As I said, I was an athlete. I was a good athlete. I was very aggressive and competitive and wanted to win, and had a good relationship with my aggression. I didn't feel any shame or judgment about it. I didn't see it as bad or wrong. So, I think it scared a lot of people in the school, that there was often times where I was pathologized in a way that I didn't feel
Mm.
was accurate. And so I thought that there was an opening there to help men, process their emotions in a way that maybe was a little bit different. I mean, the thing that I notice is that men, they talk less. Like in my groups, it's more action and less conversation. And it's not that there's not conversation or the aspect of the softness or the nurturing or the affirmation. It's not that that's not there, but I do think men respond more to challenge than women do. And so that was like an aspect I brought to it. And, like almost like a jujitsu dojo, like we're here to
Hmm.
work and to get down and get into things. And I found that men really responded to that. So, I've done work with men and women. I've done all kinds of mixed groups. I've done it all. But recently, because of everything that's going on in the world and because of, I guess, who I am as a person, I just decided to really put all my focus into men's work because I just felt like there was a way that I could reach a certain kind of man that maybe other people couldn't. And the kind of guy that might not normally come to therapy, but might feel safe with me. And so that's what I'm doing. And I find it, incredibly gratifying and guys are very smart. Like I have good experiences,
Yeah.
getting them there is obviously the hard part, but once they're there, they're up for it. They
Yeah.
go for it. They want to find out more about themselves. And, they've been holding back a lot in a lot of different ways. And so it's very gratifying for me. And I feel a lot of hope for the world in that more and more men are coming to do this work. And there's a lot of different men's organizations out there
Hmm.
doing the kind of things that I'm doing. I mean, I'm aware of all of the other people in the space and my colleagues, and some of them are just, I think, are excellent. And I'm just glad that they're out there, and I'm glad that this is happening.
Yeah, me too, man. It's so important for this human race, I think, in um, an unbelievable amount of ways, in ways that we can't begin to comprehend. That men get their heads and hearts on right, so that this world can straighten out a little bit instead of continuing to seemingly plummet
Hmm.
into into the ground. But you work a lot with men on embodying strength without losing heart, and I love that. And if the understanding is the body holds memory, if that's true, then is masculinity about reclaiming the body as much as it is the mind, would you say?
Yeah, I think, listen, most people are disconnected from their bodies in different ways. It's hard to be fully in your body. And so the work that I do it's very physical. And it's really trying to help people inhabit their bodies in a deeper way. But that's, if you inhabit your body, that's where the feelings are. So that requires that you feel your feelings. And so that's where I start with the guys. I mean,
Mm.
I start with, basic connection exercises and creating a sense of safety and purpose in the room. But in general, yeah, I mean, I'm putting together the pieces of the puzzle for them so they can
Hmm.
understand it in a concrete way. Because, of course, the mind does need to anchor in something. It's hard to be willing to go to these scary places inside ourselves unless you've convinced the mind that it has utility, it makes sense, and is safe. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of work there, right? Explaining why we're doing this, why it's beneficial, the underlying philosophy behind it. And usually, guys, I've gotten good at that over the years, explaining it. And so usually there's a buy-in pretty
Mm.
quickly, and then we just get to work. And yeah, I mean, in the simplest level, I'm just trying to help people feel the feelings that they don't want to feel,
I'm gonna
or too
send you
afraid
my
to feel.
my best friend. I'm gonna send him your way. You do online stuff too, right?
I do. Yeah, I have online programs. I don't do so much one-on-one
Yeah.
anymore, but I do have online programs specifically around relationships right now. That's what I'm focused on,
Okay.
men showing up in relationships. And then I do live workshops as well,
Okay.
which are kind of more general. And then I have a community that I'm launching in January, which will be again more general, but it'll be focused on a lot of different things. But one of the things it'll be focused on, of course, is this therapeutic approach, which
Hmm.
I have a course that I title Emotional Mastery, because guys can like, okay, I want to have mastery over
Right.
my
Right.
emotions. That
They hear
makes
that.
sense,
Hmm.
and then they come in, and then we go deep, and it makes sense to them, because it is important for men to understand themselves emotionally so that they can be present in the world and understand their motivations and get clear about what it is they're doing and how they're showing up and living out their purpose and
Yeah.
their higher purpose, as opposed to living from the
Surviving.
place of their defense or their trauma.
Yeah. Um, because defense and trauma will keep you in a state of survival, and that's usually a subconscious program running. It's like, and I always tell people, I'm like, if you're running low grade stress throughout your day, then you're running a program that makes you a low grade asshole throughout your day, because stress makes even the nicest person turn into a complete dick, like, to use words that are not quite as profane as I would use if we were not recording. But like, that is a biological side effect of being an unconscious product of trauma programming from your
Mm-hmm.
childhood, and then people don't realize that, like, any biochemical addiction is just that, whether you're getting it from heroin or from road raging. The adrenal glands, they know what they're doing, and they're gonna direct the body to get what it wants. It's like, I tell people all the time, it's like, how do you think John Doe went 5 days without a, a drop of alcohol, and then you saw him in the bar on Friday, and you're like, hey John, what, everything all right? You're all right? He's like, yeah, I don't know what happened. And he doesn't know what happened because his body took him to the bar before he was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what am I? Because the body's running the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to what you're saying. People don't. That's the subconscious part, when the body takes over, and you're not even aware on a conscious level of where it's going and what it's taking. You're just along for the ride. So who's driving the car?
That's
You
right.
know. But and so we're raising a generation of kids these days. I'm raising boys, who, I mean, they're outsourcing everything to digital electronics, right? I mean, like you, I was an athlete. I enjoyed and excelled at more than one sport, and it was an incredible outlet for me. And a lot of these kids, they're just not interested. The dopamine levels are set so high from the electronics that everything else is freaking boring. They just can't. It's just, it's really a scary situation. So, and then we're seeing, between that, and then we have the movements and the chemicals, and it's just, so what happens to masculinity when screens begin to replace the body?
Well, I mean, it's already happened. I think that's why. I mean, they're putting them on drugs. That's what it seems
Yeah.
like. A lot of boys they're putting on drugs, as opposed to letting them, run it off in the schoolyard. That's what they should be doing. I mean, I didn't stop playing. It was all day long. I mean, recess, running
Yeah.
around full tilt, and then after school for a couple hours. I mean, Saturdays, Sundays. I mean, I just never stopped moving. And so my mother probably did it out of self-preservation. She wanted me and my little brother to be tired out.
Hmm.
Otherwise, my energy was going to be through the roof. So I, I think there's a lot. I mean, I see it online. I see a lot of parents talking about how they don't let their children have screens, or they limit the screen time, and they get them outside, they get them involved in activities. I mean, yeah, you have to be deliberate about it. Otherwise, they're going to get caught in that vortex. And so I think you're going to see a split, unfortunately, because it is easy to just hand the kid an
Yeah.
iPad and let them watch a movie or play a game. And I understand that. And
It's
every
much
parent
easier than
does that.
parenting.
Yeah. Or, getting them in the car and going to the park or whatever it is. So I think, yeah, it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take a strong intention. And this is what's happening. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where this is all going. Are we on the road to transhumanism? When you see all these
Mm.
pictures, representation of aliens, they all have like little bodies and big
Cybernetics.
heads.
Yeah.
It's like they don't need their body anymore because it's all up here. And maybe that's where we're going. I don't know.
Yeah. You also
So
see some that are really buff, which is great.
aliens. I haven't
Yeah.
seen enough aliens.
If you look at when you listen to descriptions of like the tall whites, like, oh my God, there's
Oh,
beautiful,
really?
yeah, very, very well put together, and kind of the opposite of the little grays with the big heads. And
Right.
but yeah, but I do know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Who
Yeah, I don't know
knows?
where it's all going, and I'm here for the short time that I'm here, and I'm 56 now, so I'm pretty been imprinted
You look
about
great, man.
thank you very much,
You
about the way that I want to live and what I'm doing. So that's what I'm going to do. I love to be out in nature. I love to go for hikes. I love to move a lot. So that's just me, and that's obviously what I encourage in people, just because I know how good it makes you feel when you're
mm,
inhabiting your body, and also that your body has an intelligence. And if you're up in your head all the time, you don't have access to that the
yep.
bodily intelligence, which is where your intuition comes from, and the ability to be present. And the ability to be present is really uh, that's where the satisfaction is. That's where we can find peace. So if you're always up in your head thinking or playing a game, I think it's hard to get really present in your body. And I think that, I mean, obviously we're seeing it, it has all kinds of strange effects on people. And
Hmm.
yeah, we're definitely living in a society that seems sick on multiple different levels. And that maybe this is just something that we have to go through. I don't know.
Apparently it is.
Yeah.
Apparently we have to go through all of it. I just hope that we keep trying to just step away from the more extreme and traumatic parts of it. But I have this discussion all the time because one of my boys has finally realized the joy of giving himself truly to a sport. It took me, these kids grew up in Manhattan, mind you, and then we moved to Georgia in 2021. So they were at a disadvantage because for about 2 years, when they just came of age to really start playing sports, every sport in Manhattan was shut down. I mean, literally,
Mm,
I was taking them to individual basketball practice when they were 8 and 10 years old. I wasn't allowed in the gym. They were only allowed in one at a time with a mask on. And for like 7 months, I was like, how was it? They were like, I was like, yeah, this isn't really basketball, but I can't fucking play
so
basketball
silly.
one on
Yeah.
one with a mask. Not a good impression of the game. But and my younger one, he just does not have the ambition yet. I'm hoping something changes in him the way it did in my teenager, and he realizes, the joy that you can get from putting enough time to get good at something, and then being on a team where that effort is appreciated at every moment of a game,
Hmm.
and then coming up against challenges and putting yourself in a situation where you can rise to the occasion or fall and get back up again. It's all good for you, and I just think it's so underrated. And it's, I mean, in the South here, it's not nearly as underrated as the North, but sports are huge here still. They're big in the North too, but parents are like, oh no football, like they wear pads, it's like, but I just think it's so important for young people to be in their bodies, to get them off the screens, take them out in nature, let them sit for an hour. They'll forget about the screen, like let them broaden horizon, literally, and they'll come back into their bodies naturally. But parents don't know that the dopamine levels, when they're letting these kids use these machines just walked by, I was at a retreat in San Diego, and she couldn't have been more than 3 years old, this little girl, and just propped up in her high chair, iPhone in front of her. And I walked by and I was like, my heart just silently cracks because, the number they're doing on that little girl, they just don't, of course they don't realize it. I mean, I can imagine they can't realize it or they would never do it, but it's just so dangerous. It's going to cause so many problems.
Yeah. Man, this is just the world we're living in right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I have a question for you, my friend. How the hell did you end up in Romania interviewing Andrew Tate? He's a fascinating individual, so controversial, and you can see why some people love him and other people hate him. But how did you end up? How did that whole situation go down? And how did you end up in Romania, no less, with him sitting down and recording an interview? That's amazing.
Well, I did an interview with him probably during COVID, whenever that was, 5-6 years ago, 2020, I think.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah,
ago.
he hadn't really blown up. I mean, he was certainly online, and he was notorious. He'd been kicked off of Twitter 5-6 times and saying all kinds of crazy things. But he would come up in my timeline, and we had some mutuals, people that I followed and he followed, and friends, I would say, that guys who knew him that also knew me, peripherally anyway. And he just put out a call one day on Twitter saying I'm open to interviews and podcasts. And so I reached out to him right away. I mean, I saw the tweet like a minute after he'd posted it. I sent him a DM and I said, hey, I'm a psychotherapist, or I work as a psychotherapist. And, what if we do an interview and I'll psychoanalyze you? And he responded right away and said, wow, that sounds great. That sounds fun. Let's do it. So we set it up and we had this conversation, and as conversations with Andrew go, he does, 80% of the talking because he's so good at talking and he's got a lot of ideas and he wants to get them out. And that interview became the favorite interview among his fans for whatever reason. It was much talked about. And he messaged me a couple of months later and he said, hey, I finally got around to watching that interview. That's the best interview anyone's ever done with me. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice feedback. And in part, I think it was just because I didn't judge him. Like, I wasn't confrontational. I'm just trying to get to know and understand the guy just the way that I would with a client. I'm not judging them. I'm just curious about how and why they think. And so I think he appreciated that because so many people come at him strong, challenging him. Why do you think that? Don't you think that's inappropriate? And what I found with Andrew is that he was quite obviously he's incredibly intelligent, but also he's underneath all that, he's a softie, and I could feel the little boy. I could feel the innocence. I could feel his good heart. And I think, I don't know, I just liked him, and we had a good conversation. Like, there was a connection. So when he blew up a couple of years later, where he was everywhere and everybody was talking about him before he got canceled, he just reached out to me and said, hey, I'd love to do another interview if you're open to it. I think now would be the time. And then, before I could really respond, he was kicked off all of social media, and then
he got thrown in prison.
Then he ultimately got thrown in jail, and then he got out of jail, and all this stuff was going on. So I finally reached out to him. This must have been 6 months after he had reached out to me, and I said, how about that interview? And he said, well, you'd have to come to Romania. I said, I'll come to Romania because, his story was so interesting. And I was watching him being interviewed, and I just thought, I just found the interviews with him to be boring and predictable. And I thought, this guy's actually got a lot of depth, and I want to try to get it out of him. And so, we set it up. I flew over there,
That's
stayed there
cool.
for a couple days, and we did the interview. And then, of course, it was one of the most, it still is one of the most talked about. I mean, it is the most talked about Tate interview that's out there. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'm very proud of that interview. I think it came off really, really well. And
you should be.
I think he did. I think he was amazing in it. I think he wasn't aggressive or defend. I mean, of course, he was defended. We all are, but I found him to be open and willing and vulnerable and listening. Like he would listen to me and he'd try to understand what I was saying.
Hmm.
He was great. And I always say to people, if that was a first session with a client, I would have considered it a big success.
Yeah. Tate's an interesting case because he's a perfect example of understanding how powerful your beliefs are,
Mm-hmm.
and then making sure that you're only adopting, at least consciously, the ones that absolutely serve you the most. Now, you can say what you want about those beliefs. Obviously, that's where it gets controversial with Andrew, because when he says I don't believe in depression, he's talking about for himself. But people obviously are like, well, F you, whether you believe in it or not, it exists. You know what I mean? Like, and they some of his beliefs then come under fire, right? But he's a testament to just how, when you know how much belief shapes your experience on this life, in this reality, then it's the most logical decision is to make sure that you're acutely aware of what those beliefs are. Now, I don't know how much Andrew is truly aware, how much, because, when you mentioned programming, he was like, yeah, he was like, I believe that we're all a little programmed. I was like, a little, we're all a lot
Mm-hmm.
he kind of, he skipped a rock over the surface of that part. And he acknowledged it, but he was like, like from coaches, from schools, it was like from parents. And then you brought up the father, interestingly enough. And of course, the first thing he said was, but I still think I had the best dad in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And which is, for anyone who's, who was in a dysfunctional family where there was a lot of abuse, before you became aware of that, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Some of those people they're the most defensive about what a great, father, mother they had, even though they were suffered the most abuse at their hands, which is symptomatic of that, it's like so it was just fascinating interview. It's got like, I don't know how many millions and millions of views and it's on your YouTube channel for everyone who wants to hear a fascinating psychotherapy session with the one and only Andrew Tate. Listen to David's round 2 with him in Romania. It's excellent interview, excellent podcast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah. No. Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that people. I mean, I got so much feedback from that. Great feedback, and uh, yeah, and he was very happy with it as well. Which, because I didn't know, when we finished, because at the end, he did get a little vulnerable, and I just didn't know if he was going to be okay with it, but he was. He was very excited about the interview. He loved the interview, and he proudly put it out. He promoted the hell out of it. So that also showed me something, because it showed him in a completely different light. And one of the things that I say about people like Andrew Tate or Trump or even the latest character that everybody's all up in arms about, Nick Fuentes, is that they are they flawed? Of course. Are they defended? Yeah. Are they offensive? Sure. Are there things about themselves that they don't understand? Okay. But they're out there. Like,
Yeah.
they put themselves all the way out there, and you trust that they're saying exactly what they think.
Right.
And I think that's why they're so loved and hated,
Yep.
because in that place they're free, and
they're
that is
authentic.
vulnerable. They're authentic. They're authentic to themselves. And at the end of the interview, like I was trying to convince Tate of my point of view, and he was obviously trying to convince me of his point of view. And I think we met in the middle, but I certainly understood his perspective. And again, not everybody's everybody's karma is a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't judge people who don't know themselves in certain ways, or,
Mm.
you know, you think, well, yeah, they're great here, but they've got this blind spot. And if only they could confront that blind spot, they would be more whole and they'd approach us in a different way and whatever. I think certain people, their trauma, the distortion that it creates, I mean, they become attached to it, and it can ultimately lead to self destruction.
Yeah.
But there's also a gift in it, and that's what I see. And there's a lot to give from that place. So I'm not somebody who thinks about like we've got to get total. I don't think getting completely healed or whole is a thing. I mean, I've done as much work as anybody I know, and I still have blind spots. I still have
Oh
places where
yeah.
I'm defended. I still there's
Of
things about
course.
myself that I don't know, and so I try not to judge anybody. I mean, I do, but I try not to.
Right. Right.
And because we're all just human and we're all figuring it out and we're all just doing what we're doing. And I can't, I don't know what, never mind somebody's history and what they've come to life with, like what the deep soul imprint that
Right.
they have that's
What they really
causing them
came here
to
to
do this
do.
thing. And that's what I felt with Tate. I was like, this guy's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I mean,
Yeah.
he's true to himself. And so from that perspective, you know, beyond the controversies, which, you know, personally I don't give a shit about because it's
Right.
just all words. Beyond that, he's in his own way, he's fully realized.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, we'll never know what people came here to work out. You know what I mean, depending on what you believe and about incarnation, and you know the if you believe in contracts and karma and what people have come here to this you know life to do, and which is another. I can't let you off the show without at least touching on some of these far out topics, you know. But and
Hmm.
so you know maybe we'll get into them now.
Sure.
Um, you know, I especially since I think and you working with people who have wounds, I think that you of course you've come across the concept of ancestral trauma, and of course science has caught up to what you know many people have understood for a long time, that you can literally kind of you know you can trace the so-called potato famine, which was, of course, was a
Hmm.
genocide perpetrated by the British, not an actual potato famine, but the trauma that came from them starving the Irish out. You can trace that genealogy in Irish families. You can see
Hmm.
the trauma in the genes, and that is
Hmm.
wild, you know. And then I was reading this study about these mice that they subjected to like the color purple, and then like an electroshock when they made a certain turn in the maze, and
Yeah.
then like for 6 generations afterwards, the offspring of those mice would not make that left turn. And when they
Yeah.
saw the color purple, they freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
That is crazy, and that's a mouse. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Not really crazy when you think about it. I mean, it serves a perfect evolutionary purpose. It's like
yeah,
their ancestors found out that purple is pain, and so it would make sense from evolution that would be passed down through the genes. That said, I understand what you're saying. It is crazy when you actually confront it. I mean, when I think about the concept of morphic resonance, I'm sure you've heard
hmm,
about that, but that it's the same thing with rats, where they put a rat in a maze and in Canada, and it took them 40 tries to figure out the maze. And then they tried the experiment later in Australia, and it took them 20 tries.
mm,
And whereas before it took them 40, so that's through, somehow
yeah,
the rats in Canada
collective
transferred that
consciousness.
information to the rats in Australia, and the same thing with the children. They were able to figure it out in much less time. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think generational trauma and wisdom is in the body, it's in the DNA, and it can be healed. Of course, it's physiological, and but it's also psychological, because of course
Mhm.
if you grew up in the depression, let's say, and life was scarce and you have a belief about scarcity, well, you're going to pass those concepts and ideas onto your children, and they're gonna replicate that because it's part of the belief system. So
Yeah.
it's both. It's in the body and it's in the mind. But
Yeah.
the two things they're the same when you really understand how the body and the mind work. And I'm not the best person to articulate it. Joe Dispenza is somebody I think who does articulate it very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just know from working with people on an intuitive level that there is a very strong connection. And it's one. It's one nervous system. It's all the same thing, and it's all operating together, and it's all holistic. So whether and that's why for me going into the body to solve a problem of the mind is the way to go.
I always go far out on this channel. Almost always. I should never say always, but I try to. And I had a fascinating conversation with a trance channel once, and he told me that our species, the kind of inherent and really out of proportion fear that we have towards insects comes from deep-seated galactic trauma that humans have had, one kind of catastrophic war after the next with insectoids, evolved in sentient, and
Alien,
I was
like the Alien movie,
essentially, right? And then you think about, wow, think about how much that and how crazy people are so scared of, like an ant. You know what I mean? Like these little creatures that that can't even bite you if they wanted to. And I was like, wow, man, that makes a lot of sense. We have we have some of our fears are so, and reptiles too, of course. Between the Bible and maybe some of our galactic ancestral trauma, I think we have a lot of fear of reptiles. Then, of course, there's David Icke who insists, and I don't know if I disagree with him, that, many of the people who are running the planet are reptilian. I'm thinking maybe onto something based on their behavior.
Well, they're certainly run by their reptilian brain, is how it seems to me, that they're governed by that, the fear center of the brain. And so because they're in that state of fear and they don't know anything different, that it would make sense for them to want to gain power and control as a way to create safety. That's how I see it as a metaphor. But again, I'm open to all of this stuff because I don't know anything. I can't, and a lot of it is unknowable. The only thing I'm really skeptical of is certainty. And so I try to stay open to everything, and I put things through my own frame, but ultimately I kind of just know what's in front of me. But I've done a lot of different kind of things that have given me access to other realms. And certainly I believe in that. There's other realms beyond the veil, and there's life and entities and beings and information. There's a lot of other things going on that we can't quite comprehend. And I don't spend that much time thinking about it because, I got work to do today.
Yeah.
And, then I got to make dinner and wash the dishes. I'm just, I kind of try to keep it grounded and my philosophy. And again, it's different for everybody. It's like, I'm here having this human experience. And so I want to have it. I want to be here as a person. So I let myself have my feelings about the politics or whatever's going on in the world, and people, it's all an illusion. It's, it's not real. And getting involved in that is a suck up of your energy. And I agree with that on one level. So I try to hold it all lightly. At the same time, as an athlete, when you get dissolved into the game, it's just a game. It's a silly game. Basketball, hockey, football. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything.
Except when I cry when I lose.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's beautiful, right? So I want to be kind of holding both things. Yes, I understand that I'm at my core, I'm a spiritual being, and that's my essence, and that's who I am. But I also have a personality, and I'm Dave, and I'm here, and I'm a primate. And I have drives and instincts, and but part of me wants to dominate, and there's all of the things that you see that are out in the world are inside me as well. And I don't shy away from it. I don't make it bad or wrong. I don't see it as something to transcend. I just see it as something to accept and bring awareness and consciousness to, so that that I'm not making decisions from a place of fear or scarcity or trying to avoid my pain. That I'm actually making as a conscious decision as is possible. And I just trust that life is giving me what I need, and that I'm being guided, and the signs are there, and that I'm not really in control of anything. I mean, the balance between free will and
Surrender.
surrender. Yeah, it's like I was very impacted by that book, The Surrender Experiment, where the premise of the book is that he gave up his preferences. I want to do this, but then he would get this invitation to do this other thing, and the experiment was, I'm going to say yes to what comes to me and trust that what's coming to me is good for me, even if my mind doesn't prefer it or doesn't want to do it. And he ended up living, I forget the guy's name. He also wrote The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer. He ended up living this amazing life, and that's kind of how I live my life. I live it, purely by my intuition, and I look for the signs, and I feel like I'm being guided all the time. And how does that work? I couldn't tell you. I mean, people have theories about it, and maybe those theories are true, maybe they're not. I don't need to understand it to know that it's real.
Right. I understand totally. I feel like everyone should come to a place where they feel that guidance, because it is there for all of us. I do absolutely believe that we all have a whole cheering section of guides, and people call them angels, just for you. And if you're listening, I mean, sometimes I just close my eyes, if I'm in a meditation. And all I have to do is think about my ancestors, think about my guides. And, like that's like, I don't know how to describe it, like every follicle, every hair on my body stands straight up, as if somebody held some kind of crazy magnet over me. I could just feel them. But I wasn't always like that. I had to clear a lot of debris out of the way to get to a place where I can feel into them, and that kind of guidance. So, if you're listening to this and you feel a lack of that, then there's probably some work to be done, and you could check out people like David who do this kind of work, who could get you into a place where you do have more of a greater sense of your own intuition and your own guidance and guides. So I just thought I would make mention of that. But so I heard you say you're grounded, David. Does that mean you've never been taken onto a UFO?
I've never, not that I'm aware of, not that I have a memory of.
I like that you said that.
I don't have experience with aliens or entities necessarily. I mean, I have had experiences with spirits, appearing to me in different ceremonial spaces, deep ceremonial spaces, and other experiences like that. But again, I don't spend too much time trying to make sense of it. It feels real to me. It feels as real to me as anything. And, so I'm open to all of it, but I know people that, I don't not believe in aliens. I guess if I was to say, I don't think aliens exist in the physical exactly. They're probably more interdimensional, but maybe they can, manifest like Star Trek, the transponder or whatever it is. They can materialize, but I don't get the feeling that that there's I don't spaceships, but maybe there are. I don't know, but I'm like, as I said, I'm open to all of it. I don't discount anything. I don't think my mind is really capable of comprehending it, which is the other thing. Like, as long as you're You know, it's the thing that I say to my clients all the time. Like, you have to stop trying to figure things out. Like, figuring things out is actually a way of trying to gain control over things. So I just try to be in the mystery of it, open to all of it. It's fun to talk about. My wife loves to talk about it.
No, tell her to check out my podcast
I will.
and my
I
my
will.
live streams. I'm always talking about it. I'm reading a book right now called "Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space."
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
I mean, when you look at this, you're like, oh my God. But the dude, like, he was one of the top aerospace guys in our country. He actually born in France, spent most of his life in Morocco until the U.S. screwed that up. And then he came here and worked for our aerospace industry and
Hmm.
NASA and the Navy and the Army. And you look at his resume and you're like, this guy wrote this book. All right, I want to read it, but it's just, I've been doing this deep dive on the moon for a series I'm making on, for my channel. And, it just fascinates me, what's gone on right under our nose and,
Hmm.
what they haven't shared with us, but some people were wise enough to write down before it could be forgotten. So
Yeah.
I just think it's so interesting. It's not that I want to figure it out. I love reading about what has happened.
Oh, yeah. No, me too. I go down the rabbit holes. I mean, I have my own rabbit holes that I go down. I mean, like I said, my wife loves to go down these rabbit holes, so she shares with me. For me, it's more I'm very interested in the culture
Mm,
and what's going on in the culture and what is impacting the culture in the shadows and in the psychology of it. I'm very interested in evolutionary biology and evolutionary
oh, cool.
psychology and how that are primitive drives. And there's a great book that I recommend everybody read called The Elephant in the Brain,
Mm,
which is really breaks down our primitive human drives and how we're all vying for social status as a mating strategy. It's very confronting. My wife finally got around to reading it, and she's reading it right now. And every once in a while, she looks up at me. She's like, "Oh my God, this book is just completely blowing my mind." So,
wow.
there's infinite things to explore, and yeah, I like all the things that you're into. I love all that too, and it's just fascinating because yeah, we don't know anything, and it's
No.
it's just interesting to see all these conversations that people are having and trying to yeah, like I guess there's some innate part of us that wants to get to the truth, wants to understand, maybe just so that we can understand ourselves, like why we're here, what this is all about, and the mechanisms of the society and the culture. Because yeah, I mean, probably, I guess,
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like everything we're being told in the media. I mean, most people have come to the awareness in the last 5 or 10 years, if not before that, that most everything we're being told is
Yeah.
not really true. It's some fabrication. It's essentially propaganda. They're trying to control the narrative, and so then it just brings into question everything we've ever been
Yeah.
told about all of history and
Exactly.
humankind. And
My
I mean,
God.
who knows, hidden knowledge, and so all of that stuff is really
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
It's fascinating. And no, you're absolutely right. It's like, wait a minute, if they've been lying about that, what else have they been lying about?
Exactly.
And then you're like, everything, great, great. I have to relearn absolutely everything.
Right.
But David, this has been a fun and fascinating conversation, my friend. Listen, tell everyone where they can find you. As I mentioned, David has a YouTube channel. I know that you're on Instagram. I'm sure you're
Hmm.
on X, since everyone and their sister has a
Yeah.
X presence. I'm kind of behind the ball, or a little behind on that, but
I wouldn't
yeah.
worry about it. X is I don't know. I don't understand X exactly. It's hard to. I have a hard time growing on X. I don't really understand the algorithm, what's going on there. But yeah. I mean, the best place to find me is if you go to davidsutcliffe.com, my website, davidsutcliffe.com. You can find all my links, all the things that I'm up to, and all my social media. But yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram. So if you're curious about, you know, my offerings, I'm always promoting stuff there. But again, davidsutcliffe.com, you can get on my mailing list, and I send out emails every once in a while with some of my thoughts, obviously the announcements on what I'm up to. But right now, yeah, I'm very focused on men's work. And like I said, I have this community coming out in January called School for Kings, and right now I have this relationship course for men. It's like a 12-week training, and you can join anytime, and there's all kinds of training videos. It's just breaking down the deep psychology of it's a little bit like therapy.
Right.
And relationships are a great way to look at it, because relationships are our biggest pain point.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, that's where most of our stuff comes up, and where we struggle the most. So it's a great way in, I think, for men to confront themselves and figure out themselves in a deeper way, because they want to be able to show up for their women in a stronger way, and get more of what they want in a relationship. So
Absolutely.
that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome, man. That sounds incredible. There's a few people I'm going to point in your direction and give them a firm push.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. But for everyone who's listening on YouTube, or watching on YouTube, I should say, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, if you enjoy this podcast, please let David and I know. Drop us a review, a comment, 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever you're feeling generous enough to give. And thank you guys for everyone who wants to support me through community. I also have a Patreon page, bunch of freedom-loving spiritual individuals. We have incredible merch. Please check out my Patreon page. This has been one of the most algorithmic friendly podcasts perhaps I've ever done. So, but everyone who's on the Patreon gets an early release. And then they also get the uncensored version of the podcasts that I do that are not nearly so YouTube friendly as the conversation that David and I just enjoyed. So I just wanted to say that. David, thank you again, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Brent. We'll let you know when it's just going to come out, and we'll cut some clips for our social media and all that.
Appreciate it. I really enjoyed the conversation. Great to meet you, man.
You too. Sounds good, David. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.